This episode is brought to you by Top Notch Cattle Company, raising high-quality registered red and gray Brahman cattle. Contact Baxter Whitworth at 903-649-9155 or at bbwtopnotchcattle@gmail.com. If you want to be profitable as a cow-calf producer, you must be cost-effective in all aspects of your operation. In this episode of the Cattle Innovation Station podcast, we interview Brandon and Rachel Cutrer, and they're the owners of BRC Ranch. If you're wanting to build an operation that spends its revenue in cost-effective ways, this is the episode for you. Welcome to the Cattle Innovation Station podcast,
bringing you the innovative new ways of the cattle industry.
We're your hosts, Baxter Whitworth and Paul Hayes. Together, we're going to be interviewing leaders within the cattle industry.
Here on this podcast, our focus is honoring God and innovating the cattle industry. Get ready to listen, learn, and laugh as we help innovate the cattle industry.
Let's get innovating. Have you been looking for a place to buy top quality AI sire semen or collectible of your own? Well, look no further than Elgin Breeding Services. Located in Elgin, Texas, Elgin Breeding Service is not only one of the best breeding services in the business, but also has superior customer service. Contact them at ebsbull@elginbreedingservices.com or by phone at 512-285-2019. Again, that's 512-285-2019. And visit their website at elginbreedingservice.com. It's time for another episode of the Cattle Innovation Station podcast, where we keep you current on beef cattle industry events, help you innovate your herd to turn a profit, and help innovate the beef cattle industry so we can feed more people on less land. I'm your host, Baxter Whitworth, and today we're joined again with the Cutrer family, Miss Rachel and Mr. Brandon Cutrer. And so we are very excited to have them, and we're going to continue talking about record keeping and really how to run a profitable cattle operation based from record keeping and finding good cattle and marketing. So before we left, Mr. Cutrer, we were talking about how do you find cattle that maybe are kind of those hidden jewels. But something else I think is equally important is watching out for cattle that may not be worth the price. And so how do you make sure that you're staying away from something that's maybe not worth the price tag you'd be paying for it?
A lot of that is where Pedigree comes into it. And if especially if you are dealing with registered cattle and you have the ability to go on in Brahman specifically onto digital beef, and you can look at production records of dams and grand dams and things like that, or you can go with our Hereford involvement and our Angus involvement. Both of those are exceptional resources on their website and their database, where you can go back and see past generations or the generations before the cattle that come before the particular animals that you're looking at. And so if I'm researching a new herd sire that I might want to potentially bring in, and I've identified him, say, okay, he checks all these boxes. Now let me go look at his mother's production records, his grandmother's production records, both maternal and paternal, and kind of track some things that way and see if some of the traits that we're looking for are laid in there generation after generation. It's a whole lot easier to do in Hereford and Angus, because those particular breeds are so much bigger, and there's so many more breeders that are turning in the actual data than, say, in Brahman. And so in Brahman, you kind of have to pinpoint the people who you feel confident are turning in the accurate data and following their program. as best you can. And so accurate data is always important, and trying to align with breeders who are actually out there doing the work, collecting the data, and they know their cattle, and are willing to have the transparency to turn it into the association where you can do the research yourself through those really nice resources of like Digital Beef and those breed databases.
I
And
would jump in and also say we use the rationale when we're making an investment, we use the rationale of how many calves it's going to take to pay for that. You know, we know what our average price is of a bull and a female, and if we know it, we like to say they should pay for themselves, in 3 to 5 calves, and we know what that would take, and that kind of gives us a ballpark too.
And those average prices of bulls and females, that takes into consideration all calves that are born, like all bulls that sold for a whole bunch of money, and bulls that were castrated and sent to the feedlot. Same on
Mhm.
the heifers. And so that considers everything kind of an average price across the bunch.
well, and we have talked about making these cattle pay themselves off, and you've said 3 calves consistently. So I'm actually really curious, if you've bought the calf and they've produced 3 calves and they haven't paid themselves off, what happens to the calves?
Well, we still keep them. I mean, if they're still having live calves, we got to keep them till they get paid off, right?
Yeah.
But they're
Some
just
cattle
not
just take longer than others, but knowing that, maybe we don't keep daughters back out of that specific cow. And as long as she's, it, once we can get her paid for, then we can look for something else. Uh, but at the same time, I mean, there are some cows that we've bought and have had a junker calf every time, and sometimes you just gotta bite
grinded
the
out.
bullet and get
Yeah.
rid of them. And so just cut bait and run. And but if they are close to meeting the minimum and still, especially exceeding in terms of making enough income to exceed their daily care rate and all that kind of stuff, and pay for themselves, make a little money back for themselves, and take care of what it's costing to maintain them.
But
What's up?
I think we should also be very honest. We don't purchase a lot of outside Brahmins, but no matter who you are, you're going to have some wins, you're going to have some losses. You could be the greatest cattle breeder of all time, and you're still going to have some that just didn't work out,
Yeah,
and so that's normal. And when that has happened to us, we just talk I use the expression a lot, education isn't free. And so maybe that was a $10,000 lesson we learned. Don't go back to that ranch again, or whatever. We got something out of it. It was maybe just experience.
yeah,
Right. Education isn't free, but you can try and get enough of it as you can for free on, podcasts like the Cattle
yeah.
Innovation Station podcast. However, so you s- you said that you may not keep the daughters out of that calf or that heifer if you know that she didn't pay for herself, and that seems, yeah, I'm sure that can be pretty hard for y'all to do. And learning from your mistakes, even when they're pricey ones, especially when they're pricey ones, is very important. But
I would like to say, having the 3 breeds that we have, it causes it puts us into a good situations because we have multiple avenues to market calves. Say on the purebred side of things, if they're producing a lower than average calf that is not necessarily up to snuff on our production standards, we've got 2 other breeds that I can throw a bull here or a bull there and make an F1 that's better than both of them, and sell for pretty good money. And so that's the beauty of the 3 breeds that we work with, because they complement each other so well. So if one's not necessarily performing the way we want to, I can easily kick her in with a bull of a different breed and get a F1 calf, whose steer calf would be worth more money if it's a steer calf, or if it's a heifer calf, you'd still have a highly marketable animal.
And that goes back to diversifying incomes, which that's something we haven't talked much about on this podcast. I hope to do that soon with some people, but we can just say it right now that you just talked about diversifying incomes, making sure that if one thing fails, you have another one over here to help you out. And that's a great principle right there. But with your multiple breeds bringing in where y'all have just kind of started on y'all's Hereford and Angus operations, and I'm sure if y'all have kind of bought some cattle in bulk with that, haven't y'all? Or have y'all selected? How have y'all gone about that? And did you think that was a did you think that was a good decision that y'all made, or maybe not the best?
Have you been looking for Brahman cattle with a good genetic background? Contact 79 Cattle Company, selling reliable Brahman replacement heifers, Brahman show prospects, and Brahman bulls. Contact Taylor Tate at 210-241-4511. Again, that's 210-241-4511. Or contact Mallory Tate at 210-861-0155, 210-861-0155. If you truly want your livestock to perform at their best, make sure to contact Vance Aaron, the owner and operator of AFL Livestock Solutions. Vance specializes in MagnaWave treatments that use pulsed electromagnetic fields, or PEMF, to relieve pain, swelling, and inflammation, caused to help your livestock feel their best. In addition to livestock, Vance can also help you feel better. His treatment works great on sore muscles and joints, along with other mobility issues. His treatments are FDA approved to treat migraines. Aaron Family Livestock Solutions has helped many exhibitors make it to the backdrop with their proven MagnaWave treatments. Don't miss your next backdrop picture. Give Vance a call at 903-720-3184. Again, that's 903-720-3184. Or find them on Facebook at AFL Livestock Solutions.
You want to jump in?
Sure. I think it's a great decision. And in all of the business ventures we've jumped into of the 15 years that we've been married, we just firmly believe that God is directing our path. And we have taken risks, but every time we are like, we put it in God's hands, and we started small, we grow every time, and we've shown that we can do this. And so we do have a lot of risk now than what we had in the past, but we have a really strong sense of peace because we know that we can do it. And really with this, we are so thankful for God's timing because when we started this, we had our break even in our budget. And like, for example, our break even per calf of that first calf crop that we sold was $1,000. Like we were assuming we were going to market all of these at the auction barn. Well, if you look back at what happened this summer, the cattle market has exploded. And so our hope of a break even of $1,000 ended up being maybe like closer to 1,500 on the average. And we just felt like once again that was God exceeding what we had planned for. So we have full confidence in what we're doing. But we did buy in the Herefords, we sourced all of our Hereford herd from one ranch. And we bought out like their entire fall calving herd or whatever, a large group. And then in the Angus, we sourced our Angus herd from two ranches. One was Dismuke's Ranch and one was Ingram Angus. And Dismuke's had been a longtime client of Ranch House Designs, and we really felt like their program was rooted in functionality and, fertility and things like that. And so we bought a group of like fall calvers from Dismuke's Ranch. And then Ingram Angus is a partner of ours in the Brahman breed. And so naturally we went to them, and that's where we sourced our two herd bulls and a large group of fall calving cows. So all in all, I think we have a little over 200 head of both breeds, and we source from 3 operations.
Well, that speaks highly of the operations you bought from, being able to trust that their genetics are going to be good through and through. Well, so we've talked about finding good cattle, keeping good records, but none of this matters if you can't sell anything. And so let's move into marketing. And Miss Rachel, owning Ranch House Designs, you're kind of a marketing expert.
Mhm.
And before we jump into anything in marketing, I want to talk about the importance of honesty. And obviously there's the moral importance of honesty, but can you also kind of dive into how not being honest can come back to bite you?
Want to talk on that, Brandon?
Yeah, I would say people that are maybe fudging a little bit on their honesty and selling cattle, it'll definitely come back to bite you in the end. You might be able to make the sale today, but if the cattle don't live up to expectations, you won't have the repeat customer. And so repeat customers in this business are extremely important. And so and we're all working together toward the same goal. Um here in within the industry that we're working in. So we're basically teammates along the way. We're just plug ourselves in at different locations. And so the product we make, it's like an assembly line. You pass to the next person, and then they pass it to the next person and pass it to the next person until eventually it trickles down to a steak on somebody's plate. So, and everybody along the way has to be profitable. So if there's a weak link in the chain, somebody's going to go through and cut it out before long. So for you to be able to stay in business, you're going to have to make sure that the person next in line is successful the best you possibly can, and manage expectations. And like I said, you can make the sale today, but it's whether that person comes back continually over time, or at least doesn't run you down and badmouth you so bad that nobody else comes. So it's important to be honest with people.
Right. And people people don't have a lot of patience, and of course there's things that are gonna happen,
Yeah,
a calf gets sick or
that's right.
something, but always being as honest as possible, I think,
Mm.
is a great trait. So now actually moving into how to market cattle and what it takes to be a good marketer, what tools do you recommend that, especially because y'all talked about earlier in the interview where y'all weren't able to just immediately jump into certain things. It's a process of making sure everything's profitable before you move on. And so can you kind of give me a rundown of the tools and how you move through that as you become more profitable, and what tools are best for marketing?
Mhm. Sure. Um, so just a real basic foundation of marketing purebred cattle or seed stock cattle, I would say, is that your first priority has got to be the cattle, and your cattle need to match your marketing, because you can have the flashiest ad on the planet, or you could have the most expensive website, but if your cattle are not low quality, or your cattle don't match the messaging and the marketing that you're putting out, people are going to see that. So we try to have really high level elevated marketing, but even if we just had to run a simple white background ad with just a picture of a bull, I would still be confident in our marketing, because at the end of the day, what I am marketing is a high quality product. So, flash aside, we go to the basics of good cattle. Um, m- the tools that you need, really the best tool is the cell phone that everybody has, because with your cell phone, you've got a camera, you've got a video camera, you've got WhatsApp, and you can communicate with anybody around the world at any time. You've got social media. So really, that's that's really cool about marketing today, is because you can do 99% of it most likely with your cell phone, and everybody has that. Where when I started doing marketing, there wasn't digital cameras. You had to, like, take pictures with a film camera and take it to HEB and hope that one of your 24 clicks turned out to be a good picture. So really your cell phone is huge. Besides that, Adobe Photoshop is what we use for designing ads. Adobe InDesign is what I use for designing catalogs, and those are the basic tools.
EP Cattle Company. Owned by Eddie Wilson, EP Cattle Company is home of Sir Rouse Handshake. Rouse Handshake is a sound-structured, heavy-muscled bull that is really bold-ribbed. So it comes with no surprise that he is a Fort Worth and San Antonio Junior Show Division Champion and Rio Grande Valley Open Show Division Champion. He is a grandson of BRC Noble and JDH Shank Manso, and is also a great-grandson of Mr. H. Elijah Manso. You can contact Eddie Wilson or Nicole Wilson on Facebook at EP Cattle Company. So remember, if you're looking for some well-performing, registered Brahman genetics, contact Eddie Wilson on Facebook.
Infinity Cattle Services, owned by Chris Shivers, is glad to be a sponsor of the Cattle Innovation Station podcast. Infinity Cattle Services, a unique, vision-driven, service-oriented company committed to developing successful revenue-producing cattle operations, is a full-service consulting and marketing firm specializing in Brahman and Brahman-influenced cattle. Contact them today to learn more about how they can assist you with locating cattle, cattle mating, sale management, marketing, communications, record keeping, data submission, and a wide array of other services. They can be reached at 713-202-1747. Again, that's 713-202-1747, or at infinitycattleservices@gmail.com. That is infinitycattleservices@gmail.com. Visit their website at infinitycattle.com or check them out on Facebook and Instagram. First of all, I want to say that's honest, an honest opinion, because you would love for somebody to have the most expensive website, and for you to say that having the cattle be the foundation first, that has to be an honest opinion, because if someone has the most expensive website, you're happy about it. So,
Thank you.
well, but the tools of, communicating with people, and that's a great point of within our industry, we're only 2% of, which really less, because 2% of the people feed the world, but less of those 2% of people are in the cattle industry. And so a large part of our marketing has to do with one-on-one, really what most big companies that, are selling stuff that people need every day would call sales, because we're contacting people one-on-one and talking with people and making connections. And while what you know is important, I mean, it really is who you know that helps you out. Is there any tricks of the trade that, of course, are honest, but that, help push your cattle out to more people where they can see it and help people see how high quality your cattle really are?
I would say this is not a trick of the trade, but high quality photography is essential, because a bad picture of a great animal can do you much more harm, than having no picture at all. And so even if you're taking your pictures like with your camera phone, you still want to make sure that the animal is clean, the photo is cropped in nice, you have a nice background, it's not distracting, because especially today, a lot of our purebred cattle are being sold over picture and video, so you don't have to have the fanciest equipment, but cover your basics of, cleanliness, tidy background, good lighting, things like that. I would say that's a trick of the trade. Brandon, do you have any?
Yeah, like she said, a bad photo can cause a lot of damage. And just because you might have the greatest bull in the world, but if you could take a picture at a wrong angle and he looks like a jughead, all your haters are going to be like, "Do you see that picture? That bull's a got a jug head on him. And so it's
Yeah.
very important that you put the animal in the best light possible.
You've got to be super critical of your own cattle.
Mm.
You have to be your cattle's biggest critic, and you have to be conscious of every message that you put out, every comment that you put out, every photo, because public perception is really based on website and social media these days. And you have to be very conscientious of all of that to make sure that every single thing you're putting out is a true reflection of your program in an honest way.
Well, and uh, that makes sense to me because if you're obviously we remember bad things more than we remember good things unless it's something that's really good. I mean, obviously, you remember the best things of your life, but you remember when it comes to people, you remember bad things pretty good. And so I think that's very important. Something we didn't talk about earlier, and this podcast is really geared towards seed stock producers and cow and commercial cattle producers. And so the commercial sector isn't quite as good at taking records as the seed stock industry typically is. But within y'all's F1 program, and those are, I mean, they have seed stock backgrounds, but they're really commercial cattle. And so, how do y'all keep records on those where they might not have as much data from a breed association on them?
I still keep up with stuff like birth weights and the same stuff I normally would, just because I'm out there doing it with the rest of them, and keep track of it. And I put it into our digital branding book. And if I'm able to turn it into an association, if they have a program like an F1 program or something like that, I try to put as much information as I can if possible, because right now I don't think the technology is there to have like a crossbreed EPD or something like that. But if it ever comes to that point, I want my cattle to be positioned to be ready to make the transition, to have the information available. And so I just like collecting the data. And so I like having it and like being able to refer back to it and all that kind of stuff just for my own personal self. But if it ever comes a point where there will be some crossbreed type EPD, I want to be ready.
And we even see that now with which our last interview was with Dr. DeClerc, and he's the American Simmental Association EVP, and they have the International Genetic Solution. So
That's right.
there's opportunities for that out there, and so being ready for that is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
But that also begs the question of if we're taking records on these commercial cattle and we're taking records on our seed stock cattle, but y'all do genomic EPDs on y'all's seed stock cattle, why do y'all even need to keep records on your seed stock cattle if you have genomic EPDs on them?
Well, you still have to have data points to tie the genetics back to on the
You have
DNA.
you have to have a phenotype to match it too. The
Mm.
genomic is just enhanced, but you have to still have an actual weaning weight, an actual, udder score, all of that.
Right, and there's some traits that, personally I might track that the EPDs don't track, and so I found some traits for me that which I'm just now getting into the genomic EPDs, but that's what I found at least. Well, I think we can go ahead and move into our pro tip session for this episode. Our first pro tip question for this episode is to you, Miss Rachel, and that is, what is your pro tip for operations with a limited budget to market their cattle?
Just as it pertains to marketing,
You can go into anything when it
say
goes
if
to.
you have low budget for marketing. So a general rule of thumb is to reinvest 1 to 3% of your gross sales into your marketing. But like if you're in a startup year and you haven't had any sales, what do you do? Social media is great because it's free. Even personal social media, like your own personal page rather than a business page. And then I think face to face interactions is the next best thing you can do. So if you can find local events to go to that you don't doesn't cost too much to go there, you don't have to have a hotel room overnight. If you can just go and interact and be seen and network, Those would be the two things I think that are really good marketing strategies on a low budget or a zero budget.
And that's always something we're trying to help with producers, because having low margins can sometimes be part of it, and finding ways to help increase those, but without the capital to do that can be kind of hard. Are you looking for high quality hay that is priced well? Then make sure to visit Threadgill Hay Company. They have fertilized horse jigs and Tifton 85. They carry square bales and round bales. Their square bales are $8 a bale, and their 4x6 round bales are $50 per roll. That's a nice price and good quality. They're located outside of Mount Enterprise, Texas, and they will gladly give you more details when you contact them. Speaking of contacting them, you can reach out by texting Sawyer Poole at 903-646-4741 or Ronald Threadgill at 903-235-2011. Well, that does it. Well, that does it for this episode of the Cattle Innovation Station podcast. Make sure to like this episode and follow on whatever platform you're listening on. And until next time, keep innovating the cattle industry. Signing off.